Hi loves, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I will be teaching you how to make this lovely two-piece dress. If this sound like what you're interested in, keep on watching. By the way, my name is Uche and you're welcome back to my channel. So I made use of 4 years of mesh fabric to achieve this two-piece. If this sound like what you're interested in, watch this video to the end, and if you find it helpful, do not forget to give me a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe. Let's get started. So guys, you're going to need your fabric. This is my mesh fabric. It is very transparent and it stretches on both ways. Can you see it is super stretchy? So because of the nature of my fabric, I will be drafting on my pattern paper. So I'm going ahead to roll out a starting line at this top part, which I will label my shoulder line. Okay, so the next line I'm going to mark out is from my shoulder to my waistline, and mine is 16.5 inches. I will mark 2 points in order to get a straight line, and I will go ahead to connect across. I will also label it my waist line. Okay, so from my waistline to my hip line I have 9 inches. You're going to place your tape on your waistline and measure to the widest part of your butt. Okay, so after measuring mine 9 inches, I roll it across and I will label it my hip line. Okay, I will come over to my shoulder line again. I'm going to mark the dress length, but unfortunately my pattern paper wasn't enough, so I will be completing the length of my dress by the time I will be transferring this pattern to my fabric. I will go ahead to do that, but for now let's go ahead to take the neck width. So at first I marked out 2.75, but I later changed my mind and I marked 3 inches. I will advise you mark 2.75 inches for your neck width if you are on the smaller size. Okay, so I also went ahead to take my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So for my neck depth, I will use 1 for the back, and for the front I will use 3 inches. So after marking it out, I will go ahead to curve the back neckline and also curve out the front neckline. I will come down by 1 inch from where I took my shoulder measurement, and I will go ahead to connect it to the neck like so. And from that point I will come down to my chest line or my armhole depth. Okay, and I'll mark it out. So I will take my shoulder measurement divided by 2 on that point again, then I will go ahead to connect it like so, and also connect across. So this here is my chest line. Okay, I will go ahead to take my body measurement, starting with my bust. I will divide my bust measurement by 4. I marked it out on the chest line. I will come to my waistline, divide my waist measurement by 4. Also come to my hip line and divide my hip measurement by 4, and I will go ahead to connect from the bust measurement to my waist measurement, and from the waist to my hip I will use the curved part of my ruler, as you can see. After that is done, I will find the midpoint of what I have from the shoulder to the armhole depth or chest line. Okay, so I came out by ½ inch and I will go ahead to curve out my armhole, as you can see me doing like this. I will come back to my waistline and I'll measure from my waistline to my nail line. So mine is 18 inches. From my waistline to my nail line 18 inches, I will go ahead to connect it across. And after that, I'm going to measure what I have here around the hip measurement. I'm going to minus 1 inch from what I have there. Okay, minus 1 inch from what you have on the hip. Okay, and then I will go ahead to connect it to the hip line like so, and I'll also take it all the way down. So after that is done, I will now go ahead to cut out. I have my fabric in a fold of 2, so I'm going to place my pattern on it. so we can cut out the back piece. Okay, so because of the stretchy nature of this fabric, we are not going to need any allowance on the side. Okay, so no allowance on the side, hope you understand. So I will only add 0.25 inch around the shoulder and the armhole for joining the sleeve and the collar. So every other part you are going to cut it the same, as you can see. So I have also extended the length of my dress. Can you see? So this is what it looks like. So for the front, I also folded my fabric into two, and I will go ahead to cut out the front neckline before I cut out of my fabric. So you're going to place it this way, okay, and you will go ahead to also cut just like we did for the back. No allowance on the sides. You're only going to add allowance around the armhole, just a little allowance for joining and on the shoulder. So I'll go ahead to do that. This is what the front looks like. So we are going to keep the bolt aside so we can work on the skirt part. So for my skirt part, my fabric was no longer much. I have just 2.5 yards of fabric left here, so I'm going to use it to cut the down part. So I will fold the 2.5 inches into two like this. 2.5 inches, you will fold it into two like you can see me doing on the screen. After folding it, I will remove it and make sure I straighten it off camera. So after straightening it up, you are going to go ahead to fold it this way in a triangular form. At this point, you are going to go ahead to arrange everything. Take your time and arrange it. You know, this fabric stretches a lot and it doesn't stay at a place, to be honest with you. So if you have pain, you're going to need a lot of pain to pin it down so it doesn't move. So this is what the upper part will look like. You will have this shape. So I'm going to go ahead to arrange it properly and use something to hold it so it doesn't move. So I'm going to locate where my waist measurement divided by 4 is, which is here, 8 inches. So I'm going to mark a straight line right there. And you see, so you can barely see the chalk. Measure from the top to the line I marked across. So what I have there, I'm going to take it all around, okay? Still maintaining my tape on the upper part, you're going to mark it all around, and I will go ahead to cut it out. So the next step now is to take the length of the skirt, and you're going to need to pin this up part, this waist part, okay, so it doesn't shift. Okay, I'm going to place my tape on my waistline like this, and I'm going to measure 44 inches as the length of my skirt. So you're going to use your own measurement. Okay, so I'm trying to cover up what I am doing so you all can see. Okay, so my camera couldn't capture both the waist and the down part. So remember, my tape is still on my waistline. I'm going ahead to mark 44 inches. So you're going to continue this process. Okay, so as you are marking, you are adjusting your tape on the upper part. You can see my tape was here before. You're going to adjust it a little. Okay, so as you are marking it on the down part, you'll be adjusting the your tape placement around the waistline. Hope you understand. So as you are marking, you are shifting it on both the down part and on the waistline. Okay, so I'll keep marking 44 inches. So I'll go ahead to cut the ones I have marked already because my chalk wasn't visible on the fabric, so I don't miss the line. Okay, so as I mark, I will cut, and don't also forget to move your tape around the waistline as you mark on the down part. Okay, so if you notice, I did not add any allowance, neither did I add any zipper allowance. Just follow what I did on this video. Okay, no allowance. Cut your waist the same, okay, with your normal waist measurement. Okay, so after cutting, this is what I have. You're going to measure what you have around this waistline, and you will use it to cut out your waistband. So I have my fabric in a fold of 2. I'm going to use it to cut my waistband. Okay, so I'm going to mark 4 inches, as the length of my waistband. I will mark 4 inches because I want it to be about 1.5 inches after attaching it to the waistline. Okay, so I will go ahead to cut out. You're going to use your waist measurement to cut this out. Okay, so after cutting out, this is what I have. And see what I have. So I'll fold this into 2. By the time I fold it into 2, I will have it to be 2 inches. So I will use 1/2 inch to attach it to my waistline. So you're going to fold your band into 2 like this, and you go ahead to sew it around your waistline. As you can see me doing like this, you're going to go ahead to sew it all around your waistline. This is what I have after joining my waistbands to my skirt. So the next thing is to fold this into 2. You go ahead to confirm your waist measurement before you close. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead to check what I have. You can see I have 17 inches instead of 16 inches. So I am going to go ahead to remove some inches. You can see what I marked earlier was just 8 inches, which was supposed to be 16 inches. But this fabric just have a way of expanding on its own. So I'm going to mark out that 16 inches, which is the original waistline, and I'm cutting out the excess I have. So after that, you're going to go ahead to use about 1 to 2 inches depending on the kind of mesh you are working with. So this particular one is the lighter mesh and it stretches way more than the thicker mesh. So after sewing with 1 inch, I noticed that the waist was still big, so I went to reduce it with another 1 inch again. If you're working with a thick mesh, just go ahead and use 1 inch to sew. Okay, so that is all for the skirt. So for the gown, I'm going to go ahead to sew the 2 shoulders together, right side facing right side. I'll go ahead to sew them on the shoulders with just 1/4 of an inch. After I was done sewing, this is what I have. So before I close the side, I'm going to cut out my sleeve. And to cut out the sleeve, I'm going to measure what I have around the armhole. This is going to help me to cut out my sleeve. So after taking the measurements, I will take note of that. So this is the remaining pieces I have left. I initially wanted to make a long sleeve, but my fabric said no, so I'm going to manage what I have. Okay, so these pieces of fabric, I'm going to manage it like that. So I'll mark out my round sleeve divided by 2. After marking it out, I'm going to come down by 4 inches, okay, and roll across like this. I'm sorry that my chalk is not visible, so you're just going to go ahead to cut a basic sleeve, okay, normal basic sleeve, if you can't see what I'm doing. So I went ahead to curve it and I will cut the cap out. So I'm going to use the whole length of this fabric as the length of my sleeve, since I have no other option. So what I will do next is to measure around where the sleeve will get to. Okay, I will measure around that place and mark half of it, and after that I will go ahead to connect it like this to the upper part. So I'm going ahead to cut out another one because we need 2 sleeves for both sides. So after cutting out, I will notch the midpoint. Okay, so I will notch the midpoints. So my dress is open now. I'm going to match the midpoint with the joining on the shoulder. I will sew from one side to the other side, and I will also repeat the same thing on this side. After attaching the sleeve to the dress, I also went ahead to hem the edge of the sleeve by folding it 1/4 of an inch twice. You can see what I have. So the next thing is to go ahead to sew the sides of the dress together. I'm going to start from the sleeve. I'm going to sew the sleeve by 1/2 inch, and the bodice I will sew with 1 inch. So from the sleeve like this 1/2 inch. Okay, so after sewing, this is what it looks like. You can see that the dress has turned out so beautiful, and this is it. So you can go ahead to hem this, but I'm not going to be hemming it because it doesn't fray, so I will keep it like that. My dress is already short, okay, so I will leave it like that. So you can see what the dress looks like. So the next thing is to measure around your neckline. So when you measure it all around, you're going to place your fabric this way and measure it all around. After measuring it, you will take note. I'm going to use it to cut out the collar for the neckline. After taking the measurement, I'm going to use it to cut out my collar. So my fabric is in a fold of 2. I will further fold into 4 like this. You will go ahead to mark that measurement you got around the collar and add extra 1/4 of an inch for sewing allowance. So after that, I will go ahead to cut it out. So I want the length of my collar to be 1.5 inches, and I will add extra 1/2 inch for joining allowance, which will make it 2 inches, and I will go ahead to cut out. So after cutting out this part, okay, this folded part, okay, this folded part is a part that is going towards the upper neck, while this open part is a part that will be attached to the dress, which is the lower neck. Okay, so I will come to this upper part. I will go in by 1 inch. I will slant it into the down part like this. The reason for doing this is because the upper part of the neck is slimmer than the down part of the neck. So doing this, we avoid it to not to be big around the upper part, okay, not to be too big. So after doing this, I will go ahead to sew. So you will notice that it will have this kind of shape. Don't worry, it is going to bounce back after sewing. Okay, so you're going to open it up like this and sew. So I sewed by 1/2 inch. After sewing, I will go ahead to trim the excess, as you can see. After trimming it, I will open it up this way. So you will notice that one part has a funny shape. You're going to go ahead to blend it into the other part. Okay, so you will go ahead to sew it to your dress. That part that has joining, you're going to sew it on one side of the shoulder joining, and then you're going to sew it all round.